I used my 401k to buy a $50,000 house, not because it felt smart, not because I felt like super confident. I did it because waiting felt safer. And that was the problem. At the time, this felt like the exact kind of mistake you're not supposed to make. This was back in 2019 when I already had bought 2 long-term rentals. They worked, they paid, they were really boring. But I wanted more cash flow, but I didn't want to put all my money into one deal. And around that time, I actually came across this strategy called the BRRRR strategy. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. It wasn't popular back then. The idea was simple though. You buy a cheap house, you fix it up, you rent it out, and if you do it right, you can refinance and pull out all your money from the deal. This house was around $30,000, cheap enough that I could survive being wrong, risky enough that it actually mattered. There was already a tenant living there and she wanted to stay, but I needed to fix up the house still. But I thought I'll just fix up the place a little bit later, and it needed about $20,000 worth of work. That was my first mistake. She didn't pay rent on time for months, and I didn't panic as I had a stable job as a pharmacist, but I was bleeding slowly every single month. Not from like a mortgage payment because I bought the home in cash using my 401k, but I was paying property taxes and covering other expenses. Eventually, I found out she had been lying to me this whole time about her situation, about needing help. That was the moment I realized I didn't really know what I was doing yet. So I hired a property manager and they got her out. The house was empty eventually, finally, and I could finally fix it up. My parents helped me and I helped too, but at the time we were traveling all the time, so I hired a contractor. And I did some of the work, but I didn't know how to do floors. I didn't know how to install them. So he told me he could install floors. When I was out in California visiting my family for the holidays and stuff, he sent me videos. The only problem was the videos were a little bit blurry, and overall they looked great. But then when I actually went back home and showed up, the floors were completely wrong. Thank God I didn't pay him like up front. I had to have like one of the most awkward conversations of my life, and I had to tell him I couldn't pay him because I had to rip out everything that I did and start all over. I went back to the store, bought new flooring, ripped it all out, and had someone else install it on the property. Once the house was finally ready, I listed it. And guess what? Nothing happened. A week went by, 2 weeks went by, then a month, and I had just spent $50,000, a bunch of money to me at that time, and I was just waiting. And I waited. And eventually though, the leads came in, and good ones. Thankfully, the house rented, thankfully. Cash flow was around $800 every single month. And I remember thinking, that's nice, but how do I get all the money back that I just spent? So I went back to the original plan, refinance. I talked to lenders, some said no, others said the house was too cheap. And around that time, I found another similar house for sale, actually right across the street. My neighbor was working on it. I knocked on his door and asked to see it, and I asked him eventually, can I buy your house? That same idea popped up in my head. Same idea, same price range, same strategy. Then I met a lender who said something super interesting. He said, Jeff, if you combine both houses under one loan, we could do something called a portfolio loan. I refinanced both of those 2 properties. It pulled out over $100,000. That was the moment everything changed. That first $50,000 didn't make me rich, but it taught me how to move money, how to recover from mistakes, and how to stop waiting for the perfect conditions. Using my 401k wasn't the bold part. Acting before I felt ready was.